Hello everyone, this is V-Man. Well, the new patch notes for Splatoon 3 version 8.1.0 just dropped a few minutes ago, and I swear that this channel will be uploading more than just reactions. Hopefully this weekend there will be a new one that isn't one of those, but for now I want to react to the patch. So here you go. Alright, what do we got? Changes to player controls, made it so that when a player opens Umbrella's canopy, the canopy opens on the other player's screen quicker than... They fixed the Umbrellas. This is to decrease the delay between the canopy opening on the user screen and the canopy opening on the other player's screen as much as possible. They fixed the Umbrellas. I can't believe they fixed the Umbrellas. It only took them literally almost 2 years. We'll see how big of a deal this actually is, but this could actually be a massive improvement for Umbrellas. We'll have to see. Made it easier to place squid beacons and big bubblers close to elevation differences. That's nice. Made it so that the scattered weapon and gear of a defeated player vanishes quicker than before. Okay. I did notice that just today I was playing and there was an inkjet that was just sitting on the ground after someone got splatted. I'm like, dang, this is still here? That's taking a while. Alright, fair enough. Made it so that when a swimming player returns to inkling form and uses a weapon right away, the ink on their body vanishes quicker than before. That's cool, I guess. This is to alleviate the decreased visibility when the player is the same color as the ink on the ground, even when in inkling form. Yeah, makes sense. Made it so that when a player is moving at the edge of the elevated difference, the phenomenon where that player moves back and forth between the higher and lower elevations in a short period of time on other players' screens will occur less often. So the weird tick rate thing is hopefully going to happen less. Alright. Made it easier than before to jump while moving along the edge of terrain. Good. Made it so that when equipping the mint decavitator and the charcoal decavitator and holding the ZR button, the sight that indicates where the attack will impact or terminate displays just like when not holding the ZR button. I didn't even notice, and I already have 4-star mint decavitator, so maybe I'll notice. Changes to multiplayer. Okay. Arrow spray buff. So it paints better on an arrow spray. Okay, got it. Blasters reduce the amount of time it takes to begin recovering ink by 1/20th of a second. So 3 less white ink frames. Fair enough. Clash blasters, movement speed while firing is 4% faster. Okay, cool. Reduce the continuous fire interval by about 1/12th of a second. Neat. Carbon rollers. Oh no. Adjusted the damage fall off rate based on distance for horizontal swings, allowing it to deal 50 damage and 100 damage farther than it did before. And slightly expanded vertical swings collision detection with players to make it easier to hit opponents. Oh dear. I already find carbon annoying enough. So hopefully that's not going to be too big of a deal. But I guess at least the regular carbon roller needs it. Carbon deco, not so much. The dynamos. Adjusted how horizontal swings fling ink to leave fewer gaps in inking to attack or attacks than before. Okay, that's basically the main thing Dynamo needed to be a actually solid weapon. So now it will be a lot more consistent. This will especially help the regular one because it's the one with cooler. So we'll see how this works. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see more dynamos coming from this patch, especially if there's anything else that gets buffed for them. But we'll see. There's still more patch to go. Big swig rollers increase the damage horizontal swings deal distant opponents from 35 to 40. There is no change in the damage at distance that deal 50 damage or higher. That won't mean a lot, but I guess it's better than nothing. Still not going to be great, but I mean, they're fun, especially the Express kit. I like just playing this for fun sometimes. Ink brushes slightly expanded the collision detection with players for the ink flung to make it easier to hit. Please say this happened with Octobrush too. Ah, yes. Okay. So basically a lot of the roller and brush type weapons got this sort of thing. which that's very good. Especially, yeah, brushes in general. Like, none of them are awful, really, but they definitely could be a lot better to really fit in the meta. So, giving them something like this to make them a little more consistent is nice. Although I was really hoping that Octobrush would get a better fall-off curve, similar to what happened with the Dynamo Roller. Not the Dynamo Roller, the Carbon Roller. But I'll take what I can get. Dowser Dualies. Reduce the amount of ink consumed when firing by approximately 14%. And dodge rolls from 12 to 10. Yep, I know a certain YouTuber whose name starts with C and ends with Haste247 that is going to be very happy with this one. This is actually a really big change, especially for this one, because this one just, you throw a burst bomb and then you roll and then you're just kind of out of ink almost immediately. So, yeah, this should crack open the ability of the Dowser Dualies to just compete. We'll see how this impacts them. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing them in some more serious tournaments, specifically this kit. Unless something huge happens with the vanilla kit, like maybe Killer Whale gets a buff or it gets 10 points for special cheaper or something, but I doubt it. Alright, Recycle Brellas. Reduce the time required for canopies lost by being launched or broken by an opponent to recover by about 1/3 of a second. So, man, it already recovered its shield really fast, so even if you shred it, it's still gonna come back really fast. So, I guess that helps, because it's just gonna be able to protect itself more often, even if that protection is pretty limited. No sub-weapon changes, again, sad. Alright, Reef Slider. Increase the radius of the explosion that deals 70% damage by about 10%. Decrease the radius of the ink splatter from an explosion. So, Reef Slider cheese is gonna be a lot harder. You're gonna need more special power-up to use it. I'm sure there's still some places where it will be usable if you have enough special power-up, but that's gonna hurt it a lot in zones, which is probably Reef Slider's best mode, and I don't even know if this is going to be enough to help it, because this doesn't affect the kill range at all, and this is all it got. It still doesn't blow up sub-weapons, it's still just as vulnerable. Yeah, I think this is a net nerf to Reef Slider, all things considered, but I would say it's a more healthier design. So, less zones cheese if that bothers you. Ink Vac made it so that when the ink shots impact a wall, the explosion will also ink nearby ground. That makes sense. Made it so that when the ink shot impacts the ground, the explosion will also ink nearby walls. That also makes sense. So it's just a bit more consistent. It doesn't affect its killing at all, or if you shoot it directly at the floor, it'll still cap the zone. It's a little easier to zones cheese, for example. So, nice quality of life buff for Inkvac. Super Chump. Reduce the time between decoys falling and exploding from 4 seconds to 3.5 seconds. I mean, cool enough, I guess. Gives you less time to shoot them down. They're going to paint more. They're going to be better in zones, or even just as a more offensive tool in general. But they also will be a mini shield distraction thing for less time, so that's a bit of a downgrade in that regard. But I still think this is an overall buff. Alright, Trizuka. Decrease the damage dealt to the Big Bubbler to about 67% of what it was before. They really want the Big Bubbler to be a Trizuka counter. They want it so bad. But I don't know if this is gonna... I mean, I think right now it tanks about 2 shots, so this should tank the whole thing if you get it down fast enough. So that's nice. What it really needs is a damage reduction from Triple Ink Strike, because that thing just completely destroys Big Bubbler. But this isn't the only one, because the Inkjet got the exact same nerf, and honestly, I don't know if this really affects the Inkjet that much, because you're not exactly going to try to shoot big bubblers with it that often. Maybe if you're shooting the weak point, I guess, but it's not going to be a lot. I mean, yeah, it says it's a Trizuka nerf and an Inkjet nerf, but it's really just a big bubbler buff. Alright, and Kraken Royale increased the amount of time to finish charging up a charge attack by about 1/12 of a second. That's 5 frames. Man, that's gonna be kind of helpful, actually. Editor V-Man here. I know this is actually a nerf. I talk about it as it actually is later, so I'm just gonna cut this part out. And Crack-On Splat Roll is cheaper, and Blob Deco is cheaper, so 2 cheaper Kraken weapons. I'm surprised that we didn't get any other ones. So yeah, I mean, there's gonna be some other stuff too, but I think this is it for all the main sub, special, and points for special changes. I'll talk about it more when I finish everything else. In X Battles, changed the conditions for players' current tentative rankings during a season to display on screen from within rank 3000 to within rank 50,000. That's actually super nice because I am not that good, so maybe if I'm this good, then I'll actually be able to see how close I am. Plus, it'll help me see how close I am to getting any one specific X rank related badge. So that's good for badge hunters and just people who want to see how they stack up. And Clam Blitz made it so that when a player throws a clam or power clam into the goal right before it closed on their screen, the count will progress and the goal will open up again, even if at that point the goal was already closed on other players' screens, so long as it's within a certain amount of time since the goal closed. That's kind of nice because there's so many times where people, including myself, would just throw a clam into the basket right as it closed, and it still takes the clam and it still makes the little clunk noise when it gets deposited, but it just doesn't count for anything. So this should help that. Although it might be kind of annoying if it's fully closed on your screen and then it just all of a sudden opens right back up again because of someone's laggy. So overall, I think it's a good change. Other changes made it possible to continue pressing the A button to fast forward the animations on the screen where XP and Grisco points acquired are calculated after returning to the lobby. Oh, so you can speed through the results faster now? I guess that's pretty neat, because now you can get into your new matches faster. Yeah, that's good. I just need to remember to actually continue pressing the A button, which I will probably forget. In battles, made it so that pressing down will not send the booyah signal for a short period immediately after a player is defeated. This change to prevent unintended signals from being sent in the event that a player is defeated while trying to super jump to the spawn point. Oh, that's kind of neat, I guess. Although there are some times where I'd actually want to send a booyah right after dying. I'm guessing this is just going to be like half a second or so, because this has happened to me a couple of times, so that's neat. When a teammate is using a booyah bomb, players can send a booyah regardless of this change. Good. They thought of everything. And Salmon Run made it so that pressing up will not send the this way signal for a short period of time immediately after a player is revived from being in a life ring. This happens to me a lot, because I'm one of the people who actually sends help messages. Please send help messages if you are down in Salmon Run. This changes to prevent, yeah, same thing. This is a good change, because this happens quite a bit to me, actually. It feels like it happens pretty much every time I play Salmon Run. Made several changes to make it easier to use photo mode in private battles. I don't really care about that. Shortened the time until a match is deemed no contest when another player is disconnected immediately after starting a match. Oh, that's nice, because there's so many times where someone disconnects and you still have to wait like 10 seconds before the match actually ends. So you're just sitting there doing nothing and jumping off the stage with your teammates and just squid partying. And I guess it's going to be a little sad that won't really be a thing anymore, at least not as much, but I think it's overall a net positive. Made it so that players you battled with in X battles do not display in the user you have played with system. Oh, that's weird. I don't know why players you battled with in X battles wouldn't display in the users you have played with system. Maybe it's just to prevent you from blocking them, just so that you can get better matches if you find someone you don't like. But what if you actually want to friend them for some reason? Whatever, it doesn't really affect me that much. Okay, this update focuses on making changes to multiplayer balance and comfort of gameplay. For Brellas, we made changes to alleviate a phenomenon where, despite enough time passing since opening the canopy on the player's screen, they would sometimes still be hit by their opponent's shots and be defeated, because it only took them almost 2 years to do anything about it. I mean, they have done a couple of things, but it's still been a problem. Imagine this actually makes the Brellas viable or meta, other than Tent. Oh, imagine how this is going to work with Tent, because at least the one with Trizuka, that one's pretty good. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this actually helps. Although I suppose the Tent is the one that's the least likely to continuously open and close its shield. So it's probably more likely to affect the Splat Brella specifically, which maybe we'll see the Sorella Brella in more competitive matches, that is. I wonder if this is going to make it so that, like, if you're holding down the button for a certain amount of time, the canopy won't open at all on your screen, but it can still open on the other player's screens because they think it's going to be open when it's not. Oh well, the Brellas need whatever they can get at this point. For other main weapons, we have made changes that bring out their strengths and make them easier to use for players who regularly use them. That's kind of what buffs tend to do. Among the special weapons, well, we have made changes to increase the reliability of the damage-dealing effects of Reef Slider. We have slightly decreased the impact of inking due to its explosion. For that reason, this is an upgrade when used to defeat enemies, but it will make it slightly more difficult to use it to instantly ink terrain or ink territory again and again. Again, Zones cheese. Goodbye. You won't be missed. Except for the one match that I played earlier where it actually kind of helped us, but for every other time, you won't be missed. And the Trizukan Inkjet won't do as much damage to Big Bubbler. I'm surprised they didn't also change Triple Ink Strike. That feels like a big missed opportunity. Unless they really want Triple Ink Strike to be a bubble counter. But it's a bit overkill, I think. We plan on releasing the next update at the end of the current season. In that update, we will make changes to multiplayer balance, including lowering the abilities of select weapons. So are they just outright confirming that they're going to be nerfing weapons in the next patch in the notes for the current patch instead of just nerfing them now? That's a strange choice. I don't know why they're not just lowering the abilities of select weapons now. You know, specifically ones like Pencil, like Snipe Rider, Slosher even, maybe the Splatana Stamper, stuff, Squeezer especially, stuff like that. Alright, I've gone to the bug fix section. I will pause the recording, and if anything jumps out at me, I will show it on screen. If I don't find anything, then you'll just see me cut to my final thoughts. Okay, I read through the patch notes again, all the bug fixes, and there's two things more that I'd like to point out. One, the Kraken Royale change is a nerf, not a buff. So if I go back into the game and I switch to a Kraken weapon, then I can show the actual change is that the charges are slower. So like this is going to be slower, so it'll be more like this. So that's a pretty decent nerf to Kraken, actually. So that should make it less frustrating to fight at lower level, but the weapon's not exactly a powerhouse. Or the special's not exactly one that's gonna win you a lot of matches in an actual higher level environment. So that'll make it even less desirable, but I'm sure it won't see no use, especially on weapons like custom range. And so that means that these 2 points for special changes are more so compensation buffs. So the Crack-On Splat Roller and Blah Blah Redeco, I'd say that's a net positive, but for the other ones it's just a nerf, especially for ones that will get it a lot or rely on it to quite a degree. So I feel like this probably hurts 96 the most, but it's definitely a nerf for the other ones. Overall, impressions of the patch. I think as far as quality of life improvements, this is a massive patch. This is actually a really good one. I mean, just having the Brellas being fixed, being able to place squid beacons and big bubblers more easily, this will be really helpful because I like using weapons with some of these. Just less visual clutter, stuff like that. I think my favorites will be using the A button to mash through menus faster, less accidental inputs, and just less time waiting around as someone DCs from a match. Those are all really nice changes, and I think the game's going to be a lot more fun to play just because all those little things add up. But as far as the actual patch goes, I wouldn't say there's any one change in here that's bad, except maybe this, because why are you buffing the paint on an arrow spray? But it's pretty inconsequential. Unless if you're someone who's in lower level turf war and hates fighting this weapon because of Booyah Bomb spam. But overall, I think this is a patch that doesn't really do anything wrong. It just lacks some critical changes that it really should have had. After all, they did say right at the end that the next patch will include lowering the abilities of select weapons. And I really think it's a missed opportunity that they didn't do anything here. Because if you've been paying attention to the competitive scene for this game, the Trizooka has been really dominant, specifically on Squeezer and Splattershot. And the Squeezer itself, just as a main weapon, has been pretty dominant. The Snipe Rider, the one with Tacticooler, that's been pretty much a staple of most team comps for a while, and if you're not running that, you're running some other cooler weapon, which you can debate if that's a problem or not. But the reliance on cooler might be a bit much. The reliance on Trizooka is much. And the meta's, it's developed, of course, but a lot of the same weapons have been at the top for a while. And it just feels like, oh, we're still in Zuka meta. Oh, we're still in cooler meta. We're still in Snipe Rider meta. And it'd be nice if it wasn't that simple anymore. They could have even just given a little bit, the big bubbler buff will help a little, but the real thing we need is some actual direct nerf to Trizooka, specifically either startup or its ability to spam its shots really quickly, so the end lag on its shots, as well as a nerf to the Snipe Rider specifically, either less paint or less range or a slower special charge or something to that effect. Because the reliance on pencil really does make the meta kind of revolve around it. Splatlings are a lot less useful because of it. You're gonna run stuff that works well with it. And I think just making it so that you're not as attracted to pencil as a competitive team would do a lot for the game's meta variety. So yeah, overall, as far as the quality of life improvements of this patch, I'd say it gets a 10 out of 10. I don't really have any notes here. As far as the balance of this patch, I'd still give it a 7. It's definitely a net improvement. It's just missing the things that it really needed to have from the beginning. But maybe the next patch has hope. If we get some meaningful but not overkill nerfs to the top tiers, that could make it so that the meta doesn't get upended, but it becomes more diverse and, just less stuck on the top half dozen, 10 or so weapons that it's been on for the last year or so. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, I'm thankful that you watched it. I hope to see you again soon. Take care.